For the first time, Taehyung looked directly into her tear filled eyes. His grip slowly loosened. A small voice inside him whispered, "She's innocent." But another memory quickly replaced it. His sister, still crying after 3 years. His heart turned cold once again. "I'm sorry." His voice was quiet. "But I can't." An hour later, the black SUV entered the Kim mansion. The large iron gates closed behind them. Seo-yeon looked out the window. She realized she had failed. There was no escape. As she stepped out of the car, Taeyang spoke without looking at her. "The wedding is tomorrow. You can hate me, you can refuse to speak to me, but tomorrow," he finally met her eyes, "you will become my wife." Seo-yeon silently wiped away her tears. Deep inside, she made herself a promise. If Kim Tae-young thought marrying her would break her, he was about to discover that Han Seo-yeon was much stronger than he believed. The next morning, the Kim mansion was filled with people. Wedding planners rushed through the halls. Maids carried white flowers. Bodyguards stood at every entrance. Everything was ready. Everything except the bride. Seo-yeon sat quietly in a large bedroom, staring at the white wedding dress hanging near the window. It was beautiful, elegant, the kind of dress every girl dreamed of wearing. But to Seo-yeon, it looked like a cage. A young maid entered the room. "Miss Han, it's time." "I'm not wearing it." The maid lowered her head. "I'm sorry. I don't have a choice." Soyeon smiled sadly. "Neither do I." An hour later, the wedding hall was silent. Business leaders, politicians, famous celebrities, and powerful mafia families had all gathered. Everyone wanted to see the woman who was about to marry Kim Tae-young. The large door slowly opened. Soyeon walked inside wearing the white dress. Her face was calm, but inside, she felt completely broken. At the end of the aisle stood Kim Tae-hyung, dressed in a black suit. His expression didn't change as she walked toward him. When she finally stood beside him, he quietly asked, "Are you afraid?" Soyeon looked straight ahead. "No, I've already lost everything." For the first time, Tae-young had no reply. The ceremony lasted only 20 minutes. Neither of them smiled. Neither of them looked happy. When the officiant finally announced, "You are now husband and wife," the guests applauded, but the applause sounded empty. Seo-yeon felt as if the sound was sealing her fate. That evening, the black Rolls Royce stopped in front of the Kim mansion. The enormous iron gates opened. Seo-yeon looked at the mansion. It was larger than she had imagined. Beautiful, cold, like its owner. As she stepped inside, dozens of staff members bowed. "Welcome home, madam." The word madam felt strange. This place wasn't her home, it was her prison. The young led her into a large office. Dark wood, black marble, floor to ceiling windows overlooking Seoul. He walked behind his desk and placed a black folder in front of her. "Read it." Soyeon opened the folder. Across the first page were four words: "Rules for my wife." She looked up. "You wrote rules?" "Yes." He spoke without emotion. "Rule 1: You do not leave this mansion without my permission." She stayed silent. "Rule 2: You will always have bodyguards with you." "I don't need guards." "I wasn't asking." He continued. "Rule 3: Do not enter my office or the underground floor." "What is there?" "Things that don't concern you." His voice remained calm. "Rule 4: If I call for you, you come." Soyeon finally couldn't stay quiet. "And what about your rules?" Taehyung looked at her. "You made rules for me. What rules do you follow?" For the first time, The room became completely silent. Then he answered, I have only one. What is it? I protect what belongs to me. Seo-yeon's eyes filled with anger. I am not your possession. No. He looked directly into her eyes. You are my responsibility. There is a difference. She laughed bitterly. It feels exactly the same. Later that night, Seo-yeon walked onto the balcony outside her bedroom. She looked at the stars. She missed her grandmother. She missed her small apartment. She even missed the noisy streets near the bookstore. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. Couldn't sleep. She turned around. Taehyung stood at the balcony door. He was no longer wearing his suit, only a black shirt with the sleeves rolled up. For the first time, he looked less like the Mafia King and more like an ordinary man. Almost. I was thinking about home, Seo-yeon replied quietly. Taehyung looked up at the night sky. This is your home now. No, my home is wherever my grandmother is. Those words stayed with him. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he said, She'll be safe. Soyeon looked at him. What? I've arranged for the best doctors to visit her every week. Seoyeon's eyes widened. You. What? You won't have to worry about her medical bills anymore. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Why would you do that? The young's expression remained unreadable. I gave you my word. I wouldn't involve innocent people. Before she could thank him or refuse, he turned and walked away. As Taehyung entered his office, Park Jinwoo was already waiting. You helped her grandmother. Taehyung poured himself a cup of coffee. Yes, that's not revenge. Taehyung looked out the window. No, it isn't. Jinwoo smiled slightly. Boss, I think you're starting to see her as Seo-yeon, not as Han Minjun's sister. Taehyung's face became cold again. Don't misunderstand. This changes nothing. But after Jinwoo left, Taehyung found himself standing outside Seo-yeon's bedroom. The light under her door was still on. He quietly looked at the closed door for a few seconds. Then he walked away. He didn't notice the small smile on Mrs. Choi's face as she watched from the end of the hallway. She whispered to herself, Hatred doesn't make a man worry if his wife has fallen asleep. Inside her room, Soyeon sat by the window, thinking about the doctors her grandmother would receive. She still hated Kim Tae-young. She still wanted to leave. But for the first time, she saw a small crack in the cold mask he wore, and she couldn't stop wondering who was the real Kim Tae-hyung, the ruthless mafia king, or the lonely man hiding behind him. 3 days passed after the wedding. Seo-yeon followed the rules, not because she accepted them, but because she was waiting for the right chance to escape. She barely spoke to Taehyung. He left early every morning and returned late at night. When they met at dinner, silence sat between them. It was a marriage only in name. One afternoon, Seo-yeon was reading in the mansion garden. It was the only place where she felt a little peace. White roses bloomed around the fountain. A gentle breeze moved through the trees. For the first time in days, she smiled. Mrs. Choi noticed. You should smile more, madam. It suits you. Seo-yeon smiled politely. I've almost forgotten how. At the same time, inside his office, Taehyung was in the middle of a meeting. A bodyguard rushed in without knocking. Boss, everyone turned. What is it? Taehyung asked coldly. Our men caught someone outside the east gate. Who? A sniper. The room fell silent. Taehyung stood immediately. Where is Seo-yeon? In the garden. His eyes darkened. Move. Outside. Seo-yeon was feeding small birds near the fountain. She didn't notice a man hiding on a nearby rooftop. Through the sniper scope, Her face came into view. The man whispered, "Forgive me." Then he pulled the trigger. Bang! A loud gunshot echoed through the garden. Seo-yeon froze. Before she could understand what had happened, someone grabbed her waist and pulled her to the ground. She landed on the grass. A heavy body covered hers. Another gunshot rang out. Bang! The bullet hit the marble fountain behind them. Seo-yeon's heart raced. She looked up. Kim Taehyung was lying over her, shielding her with his own body. His arms protected her head. His breathing was heavy. Are, are you hurt? She whispered, before he could answer. More gunshots exploded around the garden. His bodyguards returned fire. Protect the boss. Don't let the shooter escape. Chaos filled the peaceful garden. Taehyung didn't move. His only concern was the woman beneath him. Stay down. His voice was calm despite the danger. Seo-yeon nodded, unable to speak. 5 minutes later, the shooting stopped. The sniper had escaped. Taehyung slowly stood up. Only then did Seo-yeon notice something. Blood. A dark stain was spreading across his white shirt. Her eyes widened. "You're bleeding." He looked at his shoulder. "It's nothing." "It's not nothing." She hurried to him. Without thinking, she pressed her scarf against the wound. "You need a doctor." Taeyang looked at her. She was shaking. Tears filled her eyes. She wasn't crying because she was afraid. She was crying because he was hurt. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The mansion doctor quickly treated the wound. "The bullet only grazed your shoulder. You were lucky." After the doctor left, Taeyang remained seated in his office. So Yen quietly stood near the door. "You should rest," she said softly. "I'm fine. You almost died. I've survived worse." She looked down. "Why did you save me?" Taeyang answered without hesitation. "Because they were aiming at you. But you could have moved. Instead, you covered me." Silence. Then he finally spoke. "I made a promise." "What promise?" "No one hurts what's under my protection." Seo-yeon frowned. "So you saved me because I'm your responsibility?" "Yes." His answer sounded simple, but for some reason, it disappointed her. She didn't know why. That night, Park Jin-woo entered Taeyong's office. The sniper belonged to the Black Dragon group. Taeyong's expression turned cold. "They've declared war." "It seems so." Jin-woo hesitated before asking, "Boss, may I ask something?" "Go ahead." "You could have ordered the guards to protect Madam. Instead, you jumped in front of the bullet yourself." Taehyung looked out the window. "I reacted. That's all." Jinwoo smiled slightly. "No, that wasn't instinct. That was fear." Taeyang slowly turned toward him. "What?" "You were afraid of losing her." The room became silent. Taehyung's voice dropped. "You're mistaken." "Am I?" "You've never taken a bullet for anyone. Not even me." Taeyong had no answer. Meanwhile, Seo-yeon couldn't sleep. She kept remembering the moment he threw himself in front of her. His cold eyes, his steady heartbeat, the blood on his shirt. She whispered to herself, "Why would someone who hates me risk his life to save mine?" She didn't know the answer. Neither did Kim Tae-hyung. But somewhere deep inside his heart, the line between revenge and love had begun to blur. After the attack, security around the Kim mansion doubled. More guards stood at every gate. More cameras were installed. Seo-yeon couldn't even walk into the garden alone anymore. She sighed. "So this is my life now." Mrs. Choi smiled gently. They're only trying to protect you. Seo-yeon looked out the window. I don't need protection. I need freedom. Unknown to her, Kim Tae-young heard every word as he walked past the hallway. For a brief moment, he stopped. Then he quietly continued walking. A week later, Taeyang left for an important meeting outside Seoul. Before leaving, he called Jinwoo. I'm trusting you with the mansion. Protect Seo-yeon. Jinwoo smiled. You've never repeated the same order twice, boss. Taeyang frowned. What are you trying to say? You've reminded me 3 times this morning. Taehyung ignored him and walked away. But Jinwoo couldn't help smiling. The cold Mafia King was changing, even if he refused to admit it. That afternoon, Seo-yeon entered the mansion library. She was looking for a novel to distract herself. As she reached for a book on the highest shelf, another book fell to the floor. A small brown envelope slipped out. Curious, she picked it up. There was no name, only the date. 3 years ago. She slowly opened it. Inside were photographs. Her smile disappeared. The first photo showed a young woman wearing a beautiful engagement dress. She looked so happy. The second photo showed the same woman crying alone outside a wedding hall. Mascara stained her cheeks. Her bouquet lay on the ground. Seo-yeon's hands trembled. She turned over the photo. Written on the back were the words, waiting for Han Min-jun. Her heart sank. Um, so, it was true. Another folded letter was inside the envelope. It was written by Kim Ji-on. Is greater than. Oppa says he'll be here soon. I know he won't break his promise. Everyone keeps telling me to go home, but I'll wait. Even if it takes all night, I'll wait. The letter ended there. Seo-yeon covered her mouth as tears filled her eyes. She finally understood. Jeon hadn't simply been left. She had been abandoned on the happiest day of her life. That evening, Kim Taehyung returned. As he entered the mansion, he noticed the lights were still on in the library. He quietly opened the door. Seo-yeon was sitting on the floor. The photographs were beside her. She quickly stood up. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to look through your things. Taehyung looked at the photographs, then at Seo-yeon's tear-filled eyes. You know now. She nodded. I'm so sorry for your sister. I didn't know. My brother never told us anything. Taehyung walked to the window. He lied to everyone. He even lied to Jeon. Soyeon lowered her head. If I had known, I would have stopped him. For several moments, only silence filled the room. Then Taehyung quietly asked, if you found him today, what would you do? Seo-yeon didn't answer immediately. She thought about the parents they had lost, their grandmother, the years of suffering. Then she looked directly at Taehyung. I would make him face the truth. I won't protect him if he's guilty. He should pay. Taehyung searched her face. There was no hesitation, no lies, only honesty. For the first time, he realized something. Seo-yeon had never been his enemy. The next morning, Jeon came downstairs for breakfast. It was the first time Seo-yeon had seen her properly. Jeon looked pale. She smiled politely. You must be Seo-yeon. Seo-yeon stood and bowed. I'm sorry. Jeon gently interrupted her. You didn't hurt me. Your brother did. Those simple words made Seo-yeon's eyes fill with tears. Jeon walked closer. I've heard you take care of Grandma every weekend. Seo-yeon nodded. My family is all I have. Jeon smiled sadly. I know that feeling. For the first time, the two women smiled at each other, not as enemies, but as two people hurt by the same man from across the room. Taehyung quietly watched them. Mrs. Choi walked beside him. They looked like sisters. Taehyung didn't answer. His eyes stayed on Seo-yeon. She was helping Jeon laugh. A laugh his sister hadn't shared in years. Mrs. Choi softly said, "Sometimes the person we blame isn't the one carrying the guilt." Those words stayed with him long after she walked away. Late that night, Jinwoo rushed into Taehyung's office. "Boss, we found him." Taehyung immediately stood. His eyes turned cold again. "Where?" Jinwoo placed a photograph on the desk. A man wearing a black hoodie was getting out of a car at an abandoned warehouse. There was no mistake. It was Han Minjun. After 3 years, the man who had destroyed everything had finally returned. Taehyung slowly picked up his gun. His voice was calm. "Prepare the cars. This time, he won't escape." Far away, hidden in the shadows of the warehouse, Han Minjun looked at a family photograph of himself and Seo-yeon. Then he whispered, "I'm sorry, Seo-yeon. I've come back too late."